yesterday's attacks and other things.
Some say that he does have ties to Muslim extremists. I don't know.
The Azov Regiment. Following the Ukraine-Russia conflict, they began to re-emerge in the headlines. A street militia, a political party, and part of Ukraine's armed forces. For long, they were known and feared for their far-right tendency and neo-Nazi ideology. But for the past few months, Western media have been busy whitewashing them as defenders of freedom. They're called the Azov Regiment or Battalion. The Russian president referred to the existence of the group as one of the reasons behind his special military operation against the country, to demilitarize and denazify Ukraine.
Народные республики Донбасса обратились к России с просьбой о помощи. В связи с этим, в соответствии со статьей 51 частью 7 Устава ООН, санкции Совета Федерации России и во исполнение ратифицированных Федеральным собранием 22 февраля сего года договоров о дружбе и взаимопомощи с Донецкой Народной Республикой и Луганской Народной Республикой, мною принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции. Ее цель – защита людей, которые на протяжении 8 лет подвергаются издевательствам, геноциду со стороны киевского режима. И для этого мы будем стремиться к демилитаризации и денацификации Украины, а также преданию суду тех, кто совершил многочисленные кровавые преступления против мирных жителей, в том числе и граждан Российской Федерации.
The Azov Regiment was formed in May 2014 out of the ultra-nationalist Patriot of Ukraine gang and the neo-Nazi Social National Assembly group. Both groups engaged in xenophobic and neo-Nazi ideals and assaulted people of different colors and opinions. Azov was officially integrated into the National Guard of Ukraine in November 2014, a few months after retaking the port city of Mariupol from the Russian-backed separatists. The unit was led by Andrei Beletsky, who served as the leader of both the Patriot of Ukraine and the Social National Assembly.
Ситуация сегодня развивается хорошо. Перешла армия в контрнаступление. Сейчас двигаемся по всему фронту от Мариуполя на восток в общем направлении на Новоазовск. На данный момент линия передвинулась на 20 километров от границы города.
Despite their denial of adherence to Nazi ideology, Nazi symbols such as the swastika and SS regalia are common among Azov forces. In 2015, Andrei Dyachenko, then the spokesperson for the Azov Regiment, said that 10 to 20% of Azov's recruits were Nazis. In June 2015, the United States said that its own forces would not support or train the Azov Regiment because of their neo-Nazi connections. A year after, however, Washington lifted the ban under pressure from the Pentagon. A 2016 report by the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights accused the Azov Regiment of violating international humanitarian law. According to the report, from November 2015 to February 2016, Azov embedded their weapons and forces in used civilian buildings and displaced residents after looting civilian properties. The report also accused the battalion of raping and torturing detainees in the Donbass region. In 2016, Facebook first designated Azov as a dangerous organization and banned the regiment from its platforms in 2019. However, on February 24 this year, the day Russia launched its attack, Facebook reversed its ban. By the same token, Western media have been bending over backwards trying to explain how people covered in Nazi tattoos are not neo-Nazis, portraying them instead as heroic defenders of freedom.
Станом на цю хвилину триває потужний штурм території заводу «Азовсталь» за підтримки бронетехніки, танків, зі спробами висадки десанту за допомогою катерів та великої кількості піхоти. Ми зробимо все можливе для того, щоб відбити цей штурм, але закликаємо вжити негайних заходів щодо евакуації цивільних, які знаходяться на території заводу, та безпечного їх доставлення в Запоріжжя та на підконтрольну Україні території. Маріуполь – це Україна.
As reported by the UN Commissioner for Human Rights, the Azov Regiment has a long record of crimes and offenses of all kinds. The most common scenario involved a random person being kidnapped and taken to a location belonging to the regiment. There, the victim would be tortured and forced to confess to being a member of an insurgent group. After that, the person would be handed over to the SBU, Ukraine's security service. The latest wave of the lionization of Azov began sometime before the Russian military operation. Notorious was the much-publicized image of an AK-47-wielding Ukrainian granny training to repel the enemy in the regiment's camp. But that's not the coverage Azov used to get in the West before 2022. In January 2021, for example, Time magazine called the group a militia that had trained and inspired white supremacists from around the world. Azov is much more than a militia. It has its own political party, 2 publishing houses, summer camps for children, and a vigilante force known as the National Militia, which patrols the streets of Ukrainian cities alongside the police. The Time article says, noting that it also has a military wing with at least 2 training bases and a vast arsenal of weapons, from drones and armored vehicles to artillery pieces. This isn't exactly the first time Western media have run cover for a group they themselves had until recently described correctly as extremist. For example, just last year, the U.S. public television sought to whitewash al-Qaeda affiliates in Syria, the al-Nusra Front, later rebranded as Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, as moderate rebels.
Мають бути героями живими. Тільки живі герої. Їх звідти треба забрати. І я надіюся на всі ЗМІ, закордонні наші. Я думаю, що допоможуть. Я просто вірю в це.
Мій брат – це військовий полку Азов. Спілкуємося ми з ним близько раз в тиждень. Все, що він каже, це що все дуже добре, але вони не знають, скільки ще простоять, їм неймовірно і критично потрібна підмога.
Ironically, despite being widely regarded as a threat to world security and an enemy of human civilization, the Azov Regiment has reportedly ties not only with Ukrainian authorities, but also with the U.S. According to the Global Times, American politicians, military and intelligence officers have had cooperation with the Azov Regiment in order to foster extremist forces in Eastern Europe against Russia. All in all, the West seems to have its own definition of terrorist groups. No matter how deep a group is involved in terrorist activities, as long as that group helps them advance their interests, it is not called nor is it treated as a terrorist group. Quite the contrary.